A late-night commuter train disappears into thin air, and only a few passengers survive to tell the tale. The digital clock above the platform flickered. 12:47 a.m. The last train of the night rolled into the station, its brakes screeching like a beast in pain. Daniel Martin, a weary office worker, stepped onto the empty platform, rubbing the exhaustion from his eyes. The day had been long, filled with back-to-back meetings and mindless tasks. All he wanted now was to get home, eat something warm, and collapse into bed. The train's doors hissed open, and Daniel entered the dimly lit compartment. A few scattered passengers sat in silence, their faces half-lit by the flickering lights. He chose a window, clutching his briefcase close. Outside, the fog was unusually thick for April. As the train began to move, Daniel leaned back and sighed. But something about this ride felt off. The train was too quiet. The conductor never showed. No announcements. Just the rhythmic thump of the rails fading deeper into the night. Daniel glanced out the window, expecting familiar stops. But the stations they passed were foreign. Ancient-looking platforms covered in creeping vines and cracked stone. One station had a rusted sign that read Norhurst, a name Daniel had never heard. Another had no sign at all, just a row of wooden benches buried beneath layers of dust. The fog outside grew denser with each passing mile, so thick it pressed against the windows like ghostly hands. The train never stopped. It simply slowed slightly at each platform, then pressed on. Daniel leaned forward, trying to see if anyone was waiting on board. But the stations were utterly deserted. No people, no lights, no light. He tried checking his phone, but there was no signal, no Wi-Fi, no connection at all. The GPS showed the train floating in the middle of a blank map. He was beginning to get the eerie sense that they weren't on any known route anymore. As the minutes stretched into an hour, Daniel began observing the other passengers. Across the aisle sat an elderly woman in a veil, her hands folded neatly on her lap, eyes fixed forward. Further down, a man in a dusty trench coat clutched a newspaper but never turned the page. Two teens sat side by side, staring ahead like mannequins. None of them blinked, none of them moved. Daniel cleared his throat and muttered, "Excuse me," hoping to break the silence, but no one reacted. He waved his hand gently in front of the trench coat man. Still nothing. The man's eyes were wide open but lifeless, like glass marbles. A cold shiver crept up Daniel's spine. Were they asleep? No. Their posture was too rigid, too alert. Were they alive? The train car felt like a mausoleum on wheels, filled with breathing corpses. Daniel stood up, suddenly overwhelmed with a terrible sense that he was the only real person here. Without warning, the world outside turned pitch black. The train had entered a tunnel, but unlike any tunnel Daniel had ever seen, it didn't end. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Still dark. No lights passed by, no shifts in sound or motion, just the constant clattering of wheels over the track. Daniel stared into the black, his own reflection staring back in the window, growing more distorted with every second. It felt like the tunnel was swallowing the train whole. His watch ticked on, confirming that at least 22 minutes had passed. That couldn't be right. Most tunnels were less than a mile. This one had no end. The overhead lights began to hum and flicker. Daniel looked around. Still, no one moved. The air inside the train grew heavy, as if the pressure of the tunnel was crushing the car from all sides. His ears popped. His heartbeat quickened. It felt like they were tunneling through the very fabric of time itself. A loud pop echoed overhead, and the lights went out completely. The train screeched to a jarring halt. For a moment, everything was drenched in darkness and dead silence. Then, emergency lights flickered to life, casting the train car in a sickly red glow. Daniel stumbled to the window. They had stopped at another station, but this one was unlike the other. The platform was cracked and covered in ash. Burned posters peeled off the walls, and shattered glass littered the ground. A rusted sign above read Lassen Hollow. The name sent an inexplicable chill through Daniel's bones. Outside, not a soul stirred. The fog lingered in thick, twisting tendrils, as if it were alive. He turned back toward the passenger. The veiled woman was gone. So was the trenchcoat man. Only empty seats remained. Daniel's heart pounded. He hadn't seen them leave, had heard a sound. They had simply vanished, like ghosts dissolving into the fog. Panic began to bloom in Daniel's chest. He stood and quickly walked through the car. The two teens were still there, but when he blinked, only one remained. He spun around. "Hello? Is anyone there?" His voice echoed, swallowed by the oppressive silence. Then another passenger disappeared. A businessman slumped near the door. No trace, no sound, just the faintest scent of burning metal. Daniel ran to the next car, calling out, desperate for answers. More seats were empty. He caught a glimpse of a man vanishing mid-step as he walked between cars. A flicker, a pulse of shadow, then nothing. Daniel began to shake. It was like something was plucking them away from reality. He couldn't tell how or why, but they were being taken one by one. A faint guttural whisper brushed past his ear. He whirled around. No one there. The terror was no longer subtle. It was tangible. Something was hunting them. Every step Daniel took was shadowed by the feeling feeling of unseen eyes. He started moving faster, checking behind him every few seconds. Shadows flickered in the corners of his vision, too quick to focus on. He ducked into a dim car where all the seats were ripped open and wires dangling from the ceiling. A soft, wet, scraping sound came from the far end. He held his breath. A shape moved, tall, thin, with limbs too long for its body. It didn't walk, it glided. Daniel backed away slowly, then ran. He slammed doors behind him, gasping, sweat pouring from his skin. The train stretched on endlessly like it was growing. The deeper he went, the more alien the compartments became. Seats twisted into abstract shapes, doors that led nowhere, and mirrors that reflected empty cars even when he stood in them. Whatever was following him wasn't human. It wanted him to run. It was enjoying the chase. In a hidden compartment, one that didn't appear on any previous walkthrough, Daniel found an old conductor's logbook. The pages were yellow, the ink smeared by time and moisture. But what he could read chilled him. Train 347B, route unknown, passengers unregistered, purpose, transition. Scribbled notes described the train slipping between worlds, collecting the lost, the forgotten, the damned. The train was a relic of a forgotten time, cursed to wander between dimensions. Time didn't work here, reality didn't either. Some boarded by accident, others by design. Daniel flipped to the last page. It was blank, until his name appeared in fresh ink. Daniel Martin, passenger, status, observed. He slammed the book shut. This train wasn't malfunctioning. It was alive, and it had chosen him. He was part of something larger, a machine that fed on fear, on confusion, on souls lost to the void between worlds. And somewhere deep within its engine, something watched and waited. Determined to fight back, Daniel made his way toward the engine room. The air grew colder with each car he passed, frost forming on the glass and metal. Doors groaned open as if resisting him. At last, he reached the front. Inside, where the conductor should have been, stood a figure cloaked in darkness. Its face was a shifting mass of shadows, with burning red eyes at the center. "You don't belong here," it rasped, voice like nails on steel. Daniel gritted his teeth. "Then send me back." The entity laughed, the sound splintering the glass. "You chose this path," it lunged, but Daniel held up the logbook like a shield. Light burst from it, searing, white hot. The creature screamed, recoiling. The train shook violently. Daniel sprinted to the control panel and pulled every lever, pressed every button. The lights exploded. The train shrieked. A blinding light engulfed everything as the world collapsed into itself. Daniel woke on the tracks, coughing, covered in soot. Dawn was breaking. Birds chirped in the distance. The tunnel was gone. The strange station gone. He stood up, dizzy, heart pounding. Behind him, nothing but an open field and a rusted signpost reading, "Welcome to Ashton," his hometown. The commuter train was nowhere in sight. No wreckage, no train, just silence. He stumbled toward a nearby road where a truck driver pulled over and shouted, "You all right, man? You look like you've seen a ghost." Daniel didn't answer. He just stared at the empty tracks. Later, the authorities would find no record of train 347B, no missing persons, no evidence it ever existed. But Daniel knew the truth. And sometimes, when the night is especially quiet, he swears he hears the sound of a distant train whistle, calling passengers to their final vanishing ride. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, creepy and suspenseful tales. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and share this video with friends who aren't afraid of traveling alone at night.